Hello, good evening, and welcome to Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu.
And I am Alfred Okanse.
The news is also live on Kesmi 107.1 FM and across the country at 3news.com. On Facebook, we're streaming live on 3FM 927. Coming up in the next 1.5 hours, President Mahama to prioritize Boko conflict as he gets set to name defense and interior ministers. Tonight, we bring you the fallout from the president's visit to the conflict area.
We have details of that here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Also, the National Coalition for Proper Sexual Human Rights say it disagrees with President Mahama's latest comment on the controversial anti-LGBTQ bill, as it has also vowed to resist any attempt to frustrate its passage into law.
I'm saying that we are disagreeing with that. We are saying there's a technical issue to be addressed, and we'll be highlighting it for the president's attention. So that statement is not as accurate as it ought to be.
We have details of that. Plus, the preparatory team of the Operation Recover or Loot chair, that's Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, unveils John Mahama's plan to ban politicians from buying state assets. We have details of that for you here on Hot Edition. Plus, unknown gunmen attack truck in Walawale, set it ablaze. We have updates on that as well here on Hot Edition, plus the latest in business and sports over the next 1 hour, 30 minutes. Let's get into a summary of the news now, and Safwa Boahin is here. Safwa?
Thank you, Alfred, and welcome to the news summary segment. To our first story now, on President Mahama's call to restart the anti-LGBTQ bill has been met with resistance. The National Coalition for Proper Human Rights and Family Values Disputes claims that the bill expired. Groups like Advocate for Christ Ghana are warning against efforts to delay its passage. To our second story now, President John Dramani Mahama has reiterated his commitment to resolving the ongoing conflict in Boko. Speaking after a meeting with the Boko Naba at the Zuguran Palace, he urged chiefs from the Kusag traditional area to exercise restraint and collaborate with all stakeholders for lasting peace. The president also announced plans to strengthen security leadership by appointing key heads by the end of this week. Away from that, former CEO of the Volta River Authority, Engineer Kofi, has stated that it is better to have expensive power than no power at all. Meanwhile, the Public Utilities Workers Union, PUWU, of TUC Ghana has reiterated its staunch opposition to the privatization of the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG. Also, MP Kwame Asari-Obin, A+, has urged the CID to update the public on the investigation into the 2019 murder of journalist Ahmed Swale. He revealed that during an invitation to the CID last year, he identified a former high-ranking minister allegedly involved in contracting the killers based on credible information. And to our last story now, the Office of the Special Prosecutor has begun investigations into 16 public entities, including the National Cathedral Secretariat, Bank of Ghana, and the National Sports Authority. The anti-corruption body outlined its key achievements in its second half-year report for 2024. And this brings us to the end of our news summary segment. And over to you, Alfred and Beatrice.
Thank you very much, Safwa Boahene. Let's bring you the details of our stories now. And the President John Mahama intends to make the Boko conflict a top priority in his government as he prepares to name his security chiefs in the coming hours. Ghanaians have been waiting with bated breath the nominees to occupy the Defense and Interior Ministries, as well as National Security, National Intelligence Bureau, YOKO, and allied security bodies. The age-old conflict in Boko has claimed several lives and destroyed the once vibrant economy of the area. The dispute has also created instability along Ghana's borders with Burkina Faso and Togo. Several attempts to resolve the inter-ethnic feud have proved unsuccessful. Well, earlier today, the president led a delegation to engage the overlord of the Kusong traditional area on finding a lasting solution to this. Ahead of the trip, the president met with security chiefs for briefing and tasked them to work towards reducing security threats.
We still have threats to our peace that we must continue to look at internally and externally. Internally, to do with chieftaincy disputes and some incidents of armed robbery and things like that. externally to do with the threats on our northern borders. And so we cannot let our vigilance down. There should be no vacuum. And so you must all continue to work, as the CDS said, zealously, to make sure that there's no breach of the peace in the country.
And he had the President Mahama in his during his interaction with security chiefs. While in Boko, the president met the Boko Naba and reaffirmed his commitment to resolving the protracted conflict. He announced his administration's immediate plans to strengthen security leadership by appointing key heads by the close of this week.
We still have. I stated that if God granted our desire and I was elected president, bringing peace to Boko was going to be one of my #1 priorities. So today is exactly 1 week when I was sworn in at the Black Star Square. And it's my first major assignment outside Accra. And so I decided to come and assure you that we're going to work very hard to make sure that we bring peace back to Boko. I remember when I was president, Boko and surrounding areas were very peaceful. And work was going on, people were going about their duties. It's sad that this situation has occurred again. And I know that for the last 3 years, you have not been able to sleep. You've been living under stress. And so the priority of our government will be to bring peace back to Boko so that everybody can go about his duties without fear of harassment. We want to assure you that we're putting in place the various appointments so that we can have ministers and other officials who are responsible for the security to take charge. And so within this week, we will do the appointments of the Minister of Defense, the Minister of Interior, the National Security Advisor, the National Security Coordinator, the BNI Director, and all the others. And when these appointments are made, I'm going to charge them to make Boko one of the #1 priorities that they attend and deal with. And so I'll appeal to you to exercise patience, exercise restraint, and to let you know that I am apprised of the issue. I'm going to deal with it, and I can assure you, have trust in myself and this administration that by the grace of God, peace is going to come back. Permanent peace is going to come back to Boko. And so, as my younger brother said, from here we'll continue to Nalergo to meet the Nairi too and deliver a message to him. We cannot live in a country where our people don't feel safe. Our people must feel safe to travel wherever they want at whatever time and not have people shooting at them. And so you can be sure that we'll deal with all these situations so that we all can have the peace that we need in order that our traditional areas can progress. So I thank you very much. May God richly bless you. My father reminded me about his request, and you all know what request that was. My assurance is we need peace to be established, because some of the processes that you must go through for what your hearts are desiring require that the area is peaceful. But you can be sure that I haven't forgotten.
President John Mahama. Well, from Boko, the president also proceeded to Nanlerigu, where he met the overlord for the Mamprugu traditional area, Nairina Bohagu Mahami Abdullahi Sheriga. And we're joined by Emmanuel Kuting. He's the executive director for Africa Center for Security and Counterterrorism. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us.
And thank you for having me. Good evening to your cherished listeners.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Happy New Year.
All right, thank you very much for joining us. So first of all, let me just find out from you, aside from the first step of the president visiting the area and interacting with these leaders, and also his intention to select the chiefs or bosses of the security agencies, how else do you expect him to work towards bringing a lasting solution to this Boko conflict?
Well, thank you so much. I think the president, in his current form, still enjoy a lot of goodwill among the Ghanaian people. And that presents a very unique opportunity for him to implement lasting solution to this conflict. I think that what he needs to do, first and foremost, is to establish a permanent peace commission that will provide institutional support for ongoing conflict resolution efforts. I also believe that he needs to develop a comprehensive development plan for Boko that is supported by adequate resources. And the critical ingredient here is political will. Because of lack of political will, this conflict has dragged to the level we have today. And if these ingredients are in place, I think this could address some of the underlying economic causes to the conflict. In particular, I will want the administration to focus on creating the legal frameworks that clearly define relationship between traditional and modern authorities. I think that is one of the cardinal points, that conflict between traditional authority and modern authority is bringing about some of the confusion that mostly they use our impressionable youth to cause the violence we see every now and then. And they must also ensure a non-partisan security sector operations. So all this put in place, there must be support for economic revitalization programs that will demonstrate commitment to the region's development. And whilst we are doing that, the stakeholders will also play their role in bringing lasting peace to Boko. Let me break it down and you see into clear details, especially when I talk about the establishment of the Permanent Peace Commission. The structure should be such that it should be an independent statutory body composed of conflict resolution experts, traditional leaders, security experts, and development professionals. Then we must come to look at having a permanent office this time round for Boko. Having done that, we should look at how the point 1 and 2 and 3 are mentioned are backed by legislative instruments to ensure continuity across government. So that if we are not able to get the resolution of the Boko conflict within John Mahama administration, whichever administration comes into power, these legislative instruments will ensure that the things I've mentioned above are in vogue. Then you come and look at the key functions. You look at real-time conflict monitoring and early warning system. And there must be a rapid response to emerging tensions when we have all of this put together. And thereby having regular stakeholder engagement and dialogue facilitation. Then you come to a comprehensive development for the place, taking into consideration 3 key areas: economic, social, and resource allocation. And when I mentioned about the legal framework development, I forgot to mention that the Chieftaincy Act needs amendment to be in tandem with the operation of the current system of governance we have now, which is democracy. Then we look at local government reforms as well. Then you come to security sector operations. And that is the critical aspect we must focus on.
So, sir, Mr. Kutin, I want to come in. I know you've given a number of proposals, but I just want to pick a bit of what you've said so far. And I want to start with the economic revitalization program you talk about. You do understand that program, even if the president was to think about it, cannot work until you've dealt with the Boko conflict, because as we speak, businesses there are relocating for the safety of their workers.
So if you listen to me very well at my initial stages, the economic revitalization program comes midway through the processes. I believe that given the goodwill he's enjoying now, if he wants to go through these guidelines as I've outlined, looking at the legal framework, and an office established and there's the political goodwill and resources allocation comes, the environment will calm down. The indigents will have trust in the process. And don't forget, the key indicators of this conflict is poverty. So if you are able to put all these structures in place and count return, you must use economic revitalization programs to let the people have trust in the process. Look at the amount of resources we have put in Boku, yet we don't have.
So let me ask you this question again. Yes. Earlier, you also talked about lack of political will, and then you mentioned a bit about the issues regarding traditional and modern authority. But I'm sure that you've also studied really the, as it were, underlying issues regarding the Boko conflict. And the fact that if you look at recent events, it seems obvious that criminal elements are involved, and then they just, name it on the conflict. How do we deal with that as well?
You see, if you look at the historical antecedent of the Boko crisis, the main cardinal reason we are not getting peace in Boko is politics. There's a lack of this political will. And criminal elements are attracted to areas where there's no political authority. So if the president, giving his goodwill, can form a peace commission, putting all these ingredients in place, there will be political authority. And where there is political authority, there will be law and order. So how can criminal gangs be able to penetrate? The criminal gangs are working in Boku today, or they are able to do what they do because there's no political authority. And the breakdown of law and order. You just mentioned in your bulletin, right, that a car was returning from Boku today, and it was burned down around Wali Wali. What does that tell you? It goes beyond what we are just seeing. So that is why we must have a multifaceted approach to this conflict and resolve it once and for all, as we did in Dagbon. I was a peace consultant for Dagbon, and we have walked through some of these things before, except that the context of the Dagbon conflict is different from that of Boku. But if you want to tailor in the same solutions adverse to whatever I'd spoken earlier, I think we can bring peace in Boku.
We'll have to end it here. Thank you very much. Emmanuel Kuting, he is Executive Director of the Africa Center for Security and Counter-Terrorism.
It's live here on Hot Edition. Let's say on matters of security just a bit further. A shocking incident of military violence unfolded in Wale Wale this morning as armed soldiers stormed the town, targeting citizens, leaving many in distress. The chaos reportedly began in response to a burned vehicle loaded with pepper traveling from Boko to Accra, prompting a heavy military presence that quickly spread throughout the township and forced residents to flee in panic. Solomon Kwame Kanawole is our reporter there. Is joining us on the telephone for a quick conversation on this. Solo, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Hot Edition. It's in the latest development. First of all, can you tell us exactly what's happening where you are?
All right, thank you. Okay, thank you for having me. This morning, Wale residents were left in fear. Some military personnel entered the township And in fact, anybody they meet, they beat the person with cane, stakes, some going to work, they meet them on the way and they brutalize them. And this morning, it started somewhere closer to the district education office where a car that was traveling from Boko to Accra got bent. The car was, in fact, fully loaded with pepper. And so they started the beatings around where the car got bent. And then from there, then they, in fact, entered the township. And today happens to be Wale Wale Markets Day. And so we have people who come into the township for one or two reasons. So this morning, in fact, Wale Wale Township, the people were left in fear. Just as anybody who sees the military officers, some run, some have to even fall in gutters, and others who have gone to their workplaces, they were all running helter-skelter. So this morning, this was what actually transpired in the Wale Wale Township.
I see. And any clear indication of any arrest being made as a result of this vehicle that was bent earlier today?
Well, so far, no arrest has been made. I spoke with the police commander, and he confirmed that it's this military personnel who actually did the operation. However, nobody has been arrested regarding the burning of the car, or even as to the reasons why the military entered the town to brutalize the people. It's still unclear as to whether the brutality has to do with the burning of the car or there is something different. That's what some of the victims and the residents have been saying. So for now, the reasons behind the operation is still unclear.
I see, but the military presence was heightened after this unknown men attacked and set ablaze this Kia Rhino truck in Wale Wale, correct?
Yes.
I see. But you've been speaking to some of the residents there. What have they been telling you?
Well, some of the residents I spoke with, in fact, some of them mentioned that they actually saw the vehicle parked, and with the driver and his mate, together with a mechanic, the car, they actually said, got spoiled at the location where it got bent. And some who says that they were taking their children to school saw the driver and the mechanic under the car working on it. And so the residents, or let me say the eyewitness, they confirmed that it was an electrical fault and not a group of people coming to burn the car as the military purported. That is on the side of the eyewitness and the victims the military have attacked or beaten so far. They are saying that they saw the car parked there and the driver and the mechanic working on it. And so as to the reason why they are beating them in the name that a car came to burn the car, they are not aware of that.
I see. And let's hear from the victims that you spoke to earlier today on this matter.
What happens is that we are sitting in our base, NDC base, do or die parliament. And then immediately we just saw a military man surrounding us. We don't know the reason. When they got here, now we should lie down. We should lie down. And then we don't, for the uniform, we will respect them and then lie down. So we lie down, they just started caning us with no reason. We don't know what happens. I'm just coming from home with my food. I'm not eating the food yet. They killed me and then the food fell. We don't know why. So we need justice. We want something to be done about these military men. Or else, what they are thinking we are not part of it. And if they want it to escalate, then they should continue doing. We will all escalate it. So it will go viral.
Those are some of the residents and then the persons. And so Solomon, these people were beaten or brutalized by the military personnel who were deployed earlier today?
Yes.
I see. And did they show you any indication or marks on their body with respect to these acts of brutality on the part of the military?
Yes, some of them, they have showed me. I met two nurses who actually said they are on their way to the house after their night duty. and they were in fact being beaten up by the military. One, even they have to hospitalize one. Currently, I visited the person and he is doing well. And so looking at it, they have actually extended it to several people I am not able to meet. So the few I have met, they showed me the bruises they have, and then the 2 nurses who also are visited at the hospital, and they are quite doing well.
Solomon, thank you very much for this update and the situation there in Wale Wale specifically. That's Solomon Kwame Kanawule, who is Upper East Regional correspondent, giving us updates there. So that's information right now on some unknown men, armed men, who attacked and set ablaze a Kia Rhino truck in Wale Wale earlier today. The truck loaded with pepper and route from Mognori in the Boko municipality to Kumasi was attacked in the northeast region. The incident has prompted heightened security activity in the area, with the military personnel patrolling Wale Wale township in response to the attacks. And we're getting reports that some of the residents in this area, Wale Wale, have been at the receiving end of some military brutality. We'll keep an eye on that one. We're built to speak to the Member of Parliament for the Wale Wale constituency, Dr. Kabiru Tia Mahama. We understand that they've just gotten into a meeting in Parliament, so we'll keep an eye on that, and still knocking on the doors of the Regional Security Council there to get some updates on this. But we understand the truck attack occurred amidst President John Mahama's visit to Boko and Nalerugu, where he is addressing the ongoing chieftaincy conflicts in the region. But there is some breaking news coming through right now here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7.
Breaking news on 3FM 92.7.
The news coming through right now, the President of the Republic of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, has sought for approval from Parliament considerations of the following as ministers for 10 regions. Communication has been sent to the Speaker seeking their vetting and approval. These are the nominees for the regional ministers designate. One for the Northern Region, Adolph John Ali. For OT Region, John Kojo Japong. Volta Region, James Gunu. Volta Regional Minister Designate. Eastern, Mrs. Rita Akosia Ejei Awati. That's for Eastern Regional Minister Designate. And Northeast Regional Minister Designate Ibrahim Tia. Ashanti Regional Minister Designate Dr. Frank Amwakohen. And the Upper East Regional Minister Designate Akamugri Donatus Atanga. And the Ahafo Regional Minister Designate Charity Gardiner. Savannah Regional Minister Designate Sally Subi Awuriba, and Greater Accra Regional Minister Designate Linda Okulu is also a member of Parliament. So that's the information coming through right now. Breaking news coming through from the presidency here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. President John Dramani Mahama has sought for approval from Parliament for considerations of the following as ministers for 10 regions. And remember, there are 16 regional ministers expected to be announced, and what we have right now is the names of 10 regional ministers designate. And we understand the communication has been sent to the Speaker seeking their vetting and approval. They are, again, for the Northern Region, Ali Adolph John. For OT Region, John Kojo Japong. For Volta Region, James Gunu. Eastern Region, Mrs. Rita Akosia Ejei Awate. And for Northeast Region, Ibrahim Tia. Ashanti Region, Dr. Franka Makohe. And the Upper East Region, we have Akamugri Donatus Atanga. In the Ahafo Region, Charity Gardiner, Ahafo Regional Minister Designate. And for the Savannah Region, the Savannah Regional Minister Designate, Sally Subi Awuribi. And also for the Greater Accra Region, the information we're coming through from the presidency right now is that Madam Linda Okulu has been also nominated as the Greater Accra Regional Minister Designate. That is the information coming through right now. So we'll keep an eye out on this, and we'll get you some more details on this matter. And Linda Obenewa Akwele Okulu is a member of Parliament for the Shai Osudoku constituency, and she per the information coming through from the presidency, has been nominated as the Greater Accra Regional Minister Designate. That's information coming through right now. So we'll be hitting the grounds right now and speaking to some of our correspondents on this coming through right now. And let's stay the steam on this, Beatrice, because we go to the Ashanti region right now. William Evans Nkrumah is our Northern Bureau Chief. He's connecting with us on the nomination of the Ashanti Regional Minister Designate, Dr. Frank Amoakohene. William, you're in there. You know this man very well. Tell us a bit more about the man who has just been announced as the Ashanti Regional Minister Designate.
Well, a medical doctor who has a very good rapport with the party grassroots. Remember, this is his first term serving as the regional executive member of the party, currently the chief scribe as far as NDC in the Ashanti region is concerned, a man who has carved a niche for himself. Coming into this race, people saw him to be a prodigy of the former Bank of Governor and the former Minister of Finance under Eswell's, the late Professor J.E.A. Mills administration. Here I'm talking about Dr. Kwabena Dufo. And also he has also contested as parliamentary candidate on the ticket of the NDC in the Mampong constituency as far as his political journey is concerned. So it is a two-way affair. One, honoring Dr. Kwabena Dufo and also honoring hard work. It's what many in the Ashanti region, as far as the NDC, believe His Excellency John Dramani Mahama had done. But they believe that he worked for it, even though many thought that, well, because the names that were being moved around, we didn't hear that Dr. Amoakohene was going to get the nod. But hey, some are also not surprised because he was with the Ashanti Regional Chairman sometime last week when they visited the Regional Coordinating Council and exposed the deteriorated nature of the presidential lounge and that of the residence of the regional minister. So, I mean, some believe that, well, he knew what he was doing.
Interesting stuff there. But I mean, you talk about the names that were earlier, published as possible considerations for that position of the Ashanti Regional Minister Designate for His Excellency the President John Dramani Mahama. But considering the man who has just been announced right now, how deep-rooted is he in not only the affairs of the NDC in the region, but the Ashanti region's politics at large?
Well, so he's very much deep-rooted as far as the grassroots of the NDC in the Ashanti region is concerned. In fact, in the lead up to the election, he was very visible on the ground. And he's also somebody who is very active on social media. If you go to TikTok, he's very active there with his wife. Number of followers, he has a number of followers. Most of them are NDC supporters. And of course, even some MPP activists love him because of the way he does his politics. No insult, very professional. Probably because of his profession as a medical doctor, he communicates very well. He's able to blend modern politics with his profession, and that is one key area that one would say he has majored. So he's very much known as far as grassroots politics, or in the case of the NDC, you say the branch level is concerned.
William, appreciate you for this. Thank you so much. William Evans Nkrumah is our Northern Bureau Chief there, giving us details of the news just coming through from the presidency. The man for the Ashanti Regional Minister Designate, as we have it now, the information from the presidency, the list that gives details of the 10 persons who per this information and communication from the presidency right now have been announced as minister designates for the 10 regions under consideration so far, and that is Dr. Amoakohene, Dr. Frank Amoakohene, and we understand that he's not one that is alien to the NDC in the Ashanti region and is coming through with some strong roots in the grassroots. Let's go to the Upper East region. For the Upper East region, the communication coming through is Akamugri Donatus Atanga has been nominated by the president as the Upper East Regional Minister designate. The little we do know about him is that he has contested on the ticket of the NDC for the Upper East region before, and he obviously as well is not an alien to the politics of the Upper East region for the NDC as well. So that's what we do know. And Upper East regional correspondent Castro Sinala is going to be joining us on the telephone in a bit for a conversation on this as well. And then also for the Greater Accra region, the Greater Accra Regional Minister designate Linda Obenewa Akwele Okulu is a member of parliament for the Shai Osudoku constituency. That's what we do know right now, and a part of the 10 persons announced today as ministers designate awaiting parliamentary vetting and eventual approval for the Northeast region, Ibrahim Tia, and then also for the Ahafo region, Charity Gardner, Savannah region, Salisu B. Awuribi, and then also for the Volta region, James Guno, and for the Oti region, James Kojo Japong. All these persons, then communication coming through from the presidency right now have been announced as the ministers, regional ministers designate. Let's just run through it for those who are just joining us here on Hot Edition. The breaking news coming through from the presidency is that some 10 persons have been nominated as regional ministers designate, awaiting parliamentary vetting and approval. For the Northern region, Ali Adolf John. For the Oti region, John Kojo Japong. For the Volta region, James Gunu. For the Eastern region, Mrs. Rita Akosia Ejei Awate. And for the Northeast region, Ibrahim Tia. Ashanti region, Dr. Franka Makohim. For the Upper East region, Akamugri Donatus Atanga. For the Ahafo region, Charity Gardner. Savannah region, Salisu B. Awuribi. And for the Greater Accra region, Linda Obenewa Akwele Okulu, the Member of Parliament for the Shai Osudoku constituency. And let's go on to the telephone now. Local government expert, Dr. Frederick Odro. Dr. Frederick Odro is joining us right now. Dr. Frederick Odro, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us here on Hot Edition. Now, this is the first 10 of 16 expected from the President, John Dramani Mahama. I want to find out from you how this list of the first 10 strikes you.
Well, let me indicate that I know just a few of them, but I think the appointment has come on time. Let me say, because currently there are no MMDCs, there are no chief executives for the metros and municipalities and the district assemblies. It's very important to have the regional ministers in place, because if you have the coordinating directors at the assemblies acting as chief executives, they will need somebody to superintend what they do, and they will need approvals for some of the decisions they make. So it is most helpful that regional ministers could be put in place as early as possible to ensure that they can supervise the work of the acting or the coordinating directors who are acting as chief executives. So I think it's a timely appointment being made at this time.
I see. And you talk about the absence of the MC and DC. It's essentially this coordinating the officers don't have spending authority, do they?
No, they are spending office. They are spending officers. They can sign. The coordinating directors and the finance officers sign the checks. The chief executives have the power to approve what they must spend. So if there is a regional minister in place, they can seek the approval from the regional minister to sign off the checks.
And what's the possible risk or danger of the coordinating officers holding on for the next couple of months without the MMDCs or ministers in place?
Without ministers in place, I'll be extremely uncomfortable. But even without MMDCs, and there are ministers in place, the assembly can still function as expected of them. It is only where you have situations, the current situation, where there are no regional ministers and there are no chief executives, then it is a very uncomfortable situation. And they themselves will find it difficult taking certain actions. And let me quickly add that, you see, these are career civil servants. They have, before you rise to become a coordinating director, I mean, you would have gone through the mill within the local government system and you've risen to that position. So these are no mean individuals who have just been thrust with power, and I don't expect any coordinating director worth his salt to just be irresponsible in the action they take. They are very careful individuals, generally speaking. So I am not overly worried that they are handling affairs at this stage. Because let me add also that even prior to this situation, let us know that there were some assemblies that were without chief executives for almost a year now. They've not had chief executives. If you remember, not long after the MPP had its presidential primaries, some chief executives were removed from office and new individuals were nominated. Some of them could not have their nominations going through until now. So those assemblies have been led by their coordinating directors for almost 10 months or so. So it is no new thing, and the coordinating directors are very responsible individuals, and I have absolute trust in the ability to do the right things for the assembly.
And I appreciate your thoughts on this. Dr. Frederick Adu, thank you very much for joining us on this latest information coming through from the presidency. President John Dramani Mahama has just announced a nomination of some 10 persons for the position of regional ministers. And we've run through the names. And if you go on our Facebook page at 3FM927, we're right there. And let's go to the Upper East region very quickly. Castro Senyala is Upper East region correspondent. He is joining us right now. Castro, the man Donatus Atanga Akamugri, you know him quite well because from what we're gathering, he is the incumbent Upper East Regional Secretary for the NDC, correct?
Right, Alfred.
I see. Now, beyond that, what more do we know about this man who has just been announced as the Upper East Regional Minister designate, beyond the fact that he is the current Regional Secretary for the NDC?
Right, Alfred, because of the work we do, we come across a lot of people, especially in the political circles, and Donatus Akamugri Atanga is one of those who I have been fortunate to work with. He is very humble when it comes to how he relates to people. He's been at the helm of affairs as far as being secretary for the NDC in the Upper East region is concerned. He's been there twice. I think he was re-elected in the just ended one because according to the party faithful, he's been in touch with the people and he resonates very well with the entire region. And so his nomination, which we actually understand has sat down very well with the region's people, especially the people in the umbrella fraternity, is that because he's a binding factor that has sat very well with them, and they're expecting that when he comes back, he's able to put the people together. Now, Alfred, quickly, when it comes to standing or contesting regional positions, it means you should be somebody who is able to touch base with almost all the constituencies. And so for Donatus, who had to be retained or whose candidature was endorsed the second time, means that he indeed was with the people and the people liked him. And so the NDC party, faithful, who I was speaking to moments ago when I saw the news, is that they are hoping that he brings that to bear and when he's vetted and approved, so that he is able to help to accelerate development in all corners of the Upper East region. Because when it comes to working with the people, they know that he's the best and he can deliver on the mandates of the NDC and that of the President, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama.
Thank you very much for your thoughts on this. Appreciate you. That's our Upper East regional correspondent there, Castro Senyala. But it appears that all these persons who have been nominated, Beatrice, have some strong roots in the NDC. You just heard for the Upper East region the details of Donatus Atanga Akamugri. He's actually the incumbent Upper East regional secretary for the NDC, and then also in the Sun, he is the longest serving member of the National Executive Committee of the NDC since 1998. Before becoming the regional secretary in 1998, the astute politician was elected deputy regional youth organizer in 1993. In 1994, he became the acting regional youth organizer before winning the election in 1995 to become the substantive regional youth organizer of the NDC. Played a critical role in the party's victories in 1996 and also in the year 2008. And in fact, 8 out of 12 constituencies in the region, he played a critical role in the NDC, winning all those seats as well. For the Volta region, the man who has been named as the minister designate, James Guno, is the Volta regional secretary of the NDC as well in the Volta region. So you have it, the Upper East Regional Secretary of the NDC named as the Upper East Regional Minister Designate. The Volta region as well, James Guno, has been named as the Regional Minister Designate for the Volta region. That's
it seems obvious that the president is choosing people strategically, even for the Ashanti region, a region prior to this election, as in the last general election, that we described as the very stronghold of the MPP, now giving a lot of seats to the NDC. And listening to Evans Inkum's report about the kind of person he is, then it should tell you that the party, the president is really selecting people not just for the position's sake, but who would push really the interests of the party as well in these regions.
For the vote, in fact, for the Northern region as well, the man who has been named Ali Adolf as the minister designate for the Northern region is currently the Northern regional chairman of the NDC for the Northern region as well. So yes, his name come through as well for the ministerial position.
Let's bring you some more here. And workers of the Public Utilities Workers' Union are raising concerns over job losses should the government go ahead with privatization agenda regarding the Electricity Company of Ghana. Well, the Public Utilities Workers' Union is kicking against that proposed move to privatize the Electricity Company of Ghana, as announced by the Energy Minister designate John Abdullahi Jinapo during his vetting yesterday. Leadership of the Public Utilities Workers' Union is also calling for calm among over 8,000 of its members who work for the Electricity Company of Ghana. Meanwhile, the leadership says that it is poised to engage with the government to offer alternatives to make ECG more viable.
In 2016, government privatized the revenue units of the Electricity Company of Ghana over issues of inefficiencies. The privatization triggered agitations and demonstrations among the workers of ECG nationwide. Some offices of ECG also had red armbands hoisted to register their displeasure over the privatization. Under the previous deal in 2016, the Power Compact 2 was to allow 80% of private participation in ECG, while some $1 billion was to be injected into the company to help its operations for a period of 5 years. The Millennium Challenge Corporation was to invest $418 million, while a private company, Miracle, was to invest $540 million to revamp the operations of ECG. But this did not yield any results until 2017, when another government renegotiated the privatization deal. Currently, government through the Minister of Energy designate John Jinapo has announced another privatization deal of the company. His announcement has triggered discontention among workers of ECG. The workers, who are members of the Public Utilities Workers Union, are asking their leadership to intervene. The General Secretary of PUW, Timothy Nami, said the union would remain resolute to kick against the privatization deal.
Privatizing ECG and selling it, as some people are saying, within 6 months we are selling it. I'm just very worried because our own brother is Honorable Jinapo was saying that within the next 6 months or by 6 months we will sell ECG. Here is the case: you are undergoing vetting. You have not been approved. You have not sent a paper to the cabinet. And as I present a paper to cabinet to get cabinet approval, and you can now predetermine the time of sale. Do you have some people to buy? It means that have you predetermined? It's a whole thing. So, well, we're also ready to engage in.
He called for calm among the workers of ECG.
Members I'm very much concerned. Members are very much concerned because they know what ECG stands for. It's a national asset that should not be toyed with. Yeah, it should not be toyed with at all. Yeah, from the time people started, because those people some of those people who go there or who are making those statements, we know them. We know the interest they wanted to have in ECG. We know. So we are not talking out of this thing.
He also advised the President, John Dramani Mahama, to be vigilant in his operations with those seeking to privatize the company.
Certain people who don't have what it takes to manage their power distributor, then instead of going to congratulate His Excellency, they now want to use it as an opportunity to talk about the power sector and what they can do. We have noted them with keen interest because we know them. They have been there over the period. Some of them have also metamorphosed into another entity in an attempt to say that, oh, this one is bad, this one is good, don't do this, don't do that. We are not saying His Excellency should not listen to them. I said, after all the consultation with the people, we should not forget the stakeholders, the major stakeholders in the industry.
And you heard there that report filed by our Labour Affairs correspondent Daniel Opoku. Let's speak to Labour consultant Austin Game, who joins us on the phone now. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate that.
It seems obvious that people are afraid that they might lose their job should the government go ahead to privatize the electricity company of Ghana. But does this necessarily happen when you talk about privatizing an entity?
Thank you so much. I think that the apprehension might be genuine, might be of great concern to them because it has happened severally worldwide, and Ghana no exception. But I think that they have to tread cautiously in their utterances and the apprehension that they are expressing, because this is of a difference. This is of difference because the leadership of the government have been speaking about this openly and saying that this is the way they want to go. And we have heard experts in the space of energy. Some of them I heard you, your good self, interviewing. Clearly, the desire is that some aspects of the operations of ECG have to be privatized. Though they have every reason to be apprehensive, I think that they should not be overly apprehensive. I say so because almost everybody working in ECG, the positive assumption is that they each have roles they play. If you don't have any role to play in ECG, then you don't have to be there at all. Now, the private person, there will be generally an agreement between the overall overseer of ECG, which is government of Ghana falling on behalf of the people, and the incoming private sector participants to ensure that the parties that are there can be used for the purpose. Those who may not be used, there is a laid down procedure as to how they can be turned around, either working elsewhere or be severed working relationship with and paid their redundancy pay, which is a normal outcome worldwide. So this should not promote an apprehension beyond what it is.
Provide apprehension beyond what it is. So at this stage, especially when we admit that there could be some level of apprehension among the workers, how would you want them to approach it to ensure it's a win-win situation for them and the government that is looking forward to making a company that has been underperforming for years better?
That's precisely the concern. A company that has been underperforming all these years, it is not appropriate for the larger stakeholders to suffer the consequences for that. And that is the reason why it is appropriate for them, the leadership of the union, to engage both the ministry and government in general to enable them appreciate the reasoning behind this, what the outcome will be, what the role of the people in the service already, and those who may not have a place because of maybe introduction of new technology and so forth and so on. So that does not become an abuse of anything. It's just that it has to be so. And if it's so, the people will not be thrown out without benefiting from the toil they are putting all these years.
I'm sure you heard the president there when he announced, or in that statement, that ministries had been cut from 30 to 23. Just moving on to another issue here. Already we've heard the Public Services Workers Union's representatives saying that they anticipate that obviously people are going to lose their jobs and the government should be able to find ways of helping these individuals. How do you expect this whole thing to be done?
Yeah, it is proper that the ministry, some of them are merged, some of them, the nomenclatures are changed, and I think that there should not be equally an over-apprehension as the case may be. It is true that oftentimes, when a minister is engaged in a ministry, that minister sometimes, and the generality of the government, such as the MPP that went out now, will employ certain people in the system, albeit they may not be passed through the right channel. Therefore, they may not be part of the process where the Public Services Commission might have interviewed them, issued them proper appointment letters. So if they are on some form of contract and the contract expires, then you expire. You will get out of the system because they no longer require your services when that contract expired. If they had something for them to do properly by way of proper job description and by way of targets that have been set for them each year, then they have no reason to be apprehensive. But if they have no real roles to play and they are just hanging around the system, then of course they cannot have a part in the new government arrangement. They will be paid whatever is due them, and they get out of the system.
I have to end it here. Thank you very much, Austin Game. He's a labor consultant, and still on this, a former CEO, as in the energy sector, a former CEO of the Water River Authority, Engineer Kirk Kofi, says it is better to have expensive power than no power at all. And he was speaking on the back of criticism that the engagements, the now incumbent government had earlier with power producers led the country to pay about $500 million in excess every year for excess power generated that the country didn't need. Well, he spoke to me earlier on Agenda on TV3 last night.
At 4,400, to 4,440 megawatts. And the current available generation is just above 5,000 megawatts. So whatever we said was too much is the one which has taken us over the years. But let me tell you, as the country develops, you need this reserve margin, you need this other sort of generation to be able to manage the system properly. So anybody who says, oh, they brought in too much, if that we haven't brought on too much...
Costing over $500 million.
What that?
Costing over $500 million.
I always tell people, expensive power is better than no power. Expensive power is better than no power. As we speak today, all the plans that we've been talking about that they came online, they've been running for the past 3-4 years. We saw the projection. At that time, the growth in energy demand was more than 10%. We saw that the growth rate, and that's exactly what was done. And I don't think it's wrong. And today, as we speak, if nothing is done immediately, we'll see that problem coming back again.
Well, we're back shortly after this quick break. Stay with us here on Hot Edition on the latest in the world of business after this quick break.
Imagine a place where voices matter, where every corner
Every street, every community is a platform. Join us every Friday as 3FM Sunrise hits the road, turning ordinary streets into platforms for extraordinary dialogue. Speak freely, listen deeply, and help shape the conversation that drives Ghana forward.
3FM Sunrise Mobile Edition is supported by Royal VVIP and Studio 502.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to the business segment on Hot Edition with me, Bismarck Ausa. Coming up tonight, economist Professor John Gachi calls for VAT reforms to boost tax compliance as Finance Minister nominee. Dr. Adu Adu proposes increase in tax to GDP ratio to 18%. We'll bring you details. Thanks for your company. To our very first story, Dean of the University of Cape Coast Business School, Professor John Gachi, has stressed the need for reforms to Ghana's VAT structure to enhance compliance and improve revenue generation. Speaking on TV3's Business Focus, he also called for stronger enforcement measures by the Ghana Revenue Authority to support efforts to raise the country's tax to GDP ratio. His comments come as Finance Minister nominee Dr. Adu Adu, taking his turn at the ministerial vetting, proposes increasing the tax to GDP ratio to 18%, up from the current low levels.
I think one important factor will be to deepen the compliance level about GRA, and that should be deepened. The compliance level, I believe, is low due to the fact that we have not been able to integrate the Ghana card to many things in the country. So that will have to be looked at critically to deepen the compliance level. And then when the compliance level goes up, that also means tax revenue will go up for the country. So that is a critical area that has to be done. You also need to reform the taxes that you have. I believe that has been communicated already, that there is going to be a look at the VAT structure to make it more attractive and more comprehensive to the payment of taxes by businesses and the individuals. So these are some of the important steps that should be put in place to be able to achieve that.
And that was economist Professor John Gachi calling for VAT reforms to boost tax compliance. Meanwhile, tax analyst Francis Timoboy is also calling on Finance Minister nominee Dr. Adu Adu to introduce robust policies to achieve his target of increasing Ghana's tax to GDP ratio to 16 to 18% during his tenure. To achieve this, Timoboy emphasizes the need for effective implementation measures which could potentially create more fiscal space for the government.
If you look at the current rate at which we are, 14%, and over the years, we've not even crossed 17. And within 4 years, you are targeting 18 to 20%, even though the GRA in their strategic plan for 2023 to 2027, they are targeting between 18 to 20%. That's a huge tax. But it's doable if you're able to, revamp our tax system, put in the necessary policy reforms. We should be able to do that. If you take VAT alone, for example, Togo is doing better in terms of VAT compliance than we are doing. So what measures is he going to put in place to ensure compliance? I was happy to hear him say that he will rather pursue compliance rather than introducing new taxes.
And that was tax analyst Francis Timoboy there. Before we go, gold and cocoa prices are set to perform strongly in 2025, driven by geopolitical tensions, U.S. Fed interest rate cuts, and supply constraints. Meanwhile, Brent crude oil is projected to trade below $76 per barrel due to high inventories and a global shift toward clean energy. The following 3 Business News Desk report has more. Gold and cocoa prices are forecast to rise significantly in 2025, with gold expected to trade between $2,600 and $3,100 per ounce, according to Data Bank research. The surge is attributed to geopolitical tensions and potential U.S. Fed interest rate cuts, which could drive safe haven demand. Local investors in Ghana are encouraged to diversify their portfolios by investing in assets like the new gold ETF and the Ghana Gold Coin. Cocoa prices are projected to reach $7,000 to $9,600 per metric ton, spurred by supply constraints from Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. Challenges include adverse weather, illegal gold mining, and the EU deforestation regulation set to take effect in early 2025, which could further restrict supply amid strong global demand for chocolate. However, Brent crude prices are expected to fall below $76 per barrel due to high U.S. inventories and slowing global oil demand, reflecting economic challenges in major markets like China and North America, and a shift toward sustainable energy. That was a 3 Business News Desk report on gold and cocoa prices set to perform strongly in 2025, driven by geopolitical tensions, U.S. Fed interest rate cuts, and supply constraints. And that was a 3 Business News Desk report, and that will be all for the business segment on Hot Edition with me, Bismarck Ausa. For more business stories, please log on to 3news.com. Thanks for your company.
Let's do some sports here on 3FM's Hot Edition. My name is Mutala Yakubu. Now let's begin with some breaking news. And the Ghana Football Association have announced Swedish tactician Kim Lasse-Jokegren as the head coach of the Black Queens. The Swede will replace Nora Hoptel, who left for Zambia, and will be assisted by Charles Sampson and Anita Redu. Akosi Eje is here to tell us more about this man, because she covers extensively women's football for 3 Sports. Akosia, who is this Swedish coach?
He is a female coach, obviously, who just had a stint with the NWSL side racing, and he has also done some coaching in Cyprus, in Beijing, and it's not surprising that the GFA decided to go back to Sweden to get another person to manage our team. And as you said earlier on, he will be assisted by Anita Redu and then Samson. What we know is that he's done some jobs in women football for club side. He's not done a national team coaching yet. He's done some club side coaching in Beijing. He's been to Cyprus, and recently, that's as at 2023 in the USA.
Now we just have about 6 months to the Women's AFCON. What will be the topmost priority of this coach and the new technical team, which consists of Anita Redu and Charles Sampson?
I mean, luckily for him, the team have already qualified. We are in the same group with Mali, Tanzania, and South Africa. What we need, or what he needs to do with this particular crop of players as we head into the Women's African Cup of Nations, is that we're making a return since 2018. And the Black Queens have been runners-up in this tournament before. In 2016, UC Basigi took the team for the second time to the AFCON, and they were the second runners-up. If the Queens are not able to replicate that, we would hope to see some beautiful play, also qualify us from the group stage, which will be very, very important for us, because in 2018, when we hosted the tournament here in Ghana, we were unable to move past the group stage. Remember, being in the same group with South Africa, Mali, and then Tanzania, South Africans are definitely going to be the favorites in the group, and so we would need to fight for that second spot to move out of the group.
Okay, thanks very much, Akosi Eje there. She covers women's football for 3 Sports. Now let's move on from the Black Queens and talk about Kumasi Asante Kotoko, because they will be without their top scorer Albert Amua for 2 months after he sustained a ligament injury in their matchday 16 clash against Mediema. Now Amua, who has scored 9 goals in all competitions so far, is set to miss a larger chunk of their league games. Ghana Premier League statistician and expert Mohamed Shaban believes this will be a huge blow to the Porcupines.
With Albert Amua's injury situation, is going to have an impact on Kotoko setup negatively. But one of the things that Kotoko have managed to work on has been the replacement of Albert Amua, that is Kwame Puku. And if you have a striker who can give you 3 goals in 3 matches in all competitions, then that is a positive one. But Albert has been one of the key players for Kotoko. If you watch the game against Atofo, you could clearly see that he was the one used for high pressing. And if you have such a player, it paves way for other players to also get some goals. We know Albert has scored 7 goals in the Premier League, 9 goals in all competitions for the club. But his input in the Kotoko's setup has been very, very great. Without him, Kwame Puku will be doing the work. But with him, Kotoko could have done better in their next games, because at a point in time, if you do analysis of the current Kotoko team with Albert Amwa, Samson Iduku, Kwame Puku, and the inclusion of Isaac Menta, there's a possibility of Kotoko winning the league. The chances, because of the number of goals they're expected to score. Without him, it is also going to have an effect on the team. But let's see how Kotoko get a replacement for him, because they need an immediate replacement who will do more of the high pressing for the team.
So that was Mohamed Shaban there, a football statistician, Ghana Premier League football statistician for us there. Now let's move to the continental level, where the Confederation of African Football, CAF, has decided to postpone the 2025 African Nations Championship, that is the CHAN, to August. Originally, it was scheduled for February 2025. The tournament will now be held in the summer across Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. This postponement is in relation to growing concerns about unready infrastructure and a stadium. Let's now cross borders and go to the camp of West Ham United, whose manager, that is Graham Potter, says that despite the club having a tough season, his focus is not on bringing in new players, but rather get the best out of the current crop of players. Now, Potter, who coaches the likes of Kudus Mohammed, joined the club after they parted ways with Julian Lepitegu following a string of bad results.
Obviously, with the situation with Mick as well, there's certainly a logical rationale to do something, but again, it's not quite as simple as that.
You're being linked, obviously, with a number of players in the window. I know you won't talk names, but Evan Ferguson is a striker.
But you're going to ask me names.
You gave him his debut, and he's not played much. Could he fit the bill for you?
Well, again, he's a player that's not a West Ham player, and until he's a West Ham player, I won't speak about anybody. We've got enough good players here, and they're my focus at the moment. Jeremy, nice try though.
And that applies to Dewsbury Hall as well.
So that was Graham Potter there talking about the fact that he's not going to bring in new players and will try to get the best out of the players available at West Ham. Remember that West Ham United are having a terrible season. Currently, they are 14th on the Premier League log. And that's all by way of sports on 3FM's Hot Edition. My name is Mutala Yakubu. But before I go, Beatrice wants to do something. I mean, this is unusual, but she wants to talk about the Black Queens.
The Black Queens, because I love the Black Queens. I think
course.
that they've been outperforming the Black Stars that I think we shouldn't be spending money on anymore with all those internal politics and all of that. But I'm just wondering, the new coach who has come on board, how much of a difference will it make in terms of pushing the Black Queens beyond where they are?
Well, looking at the kind of teams that he's coached, he has vast experience, especially in Europe. He's been to the United States before, which was his last job that he did. He's coached in Cyprus before. He's been in Sweden. He's a Swede. So he's been coached about 4 teams in Sweden. So he comes with a very vast knowledge and experience to the Black Queens. Remember that Nora Hopton, who left the team, is also from Sweden. And it came as a shocker to us, but maybe we found a new love in Sweden. That is why we've gone back to bring
the Black Stars coach that we've had, especially those from outside, didn't they have equal experience?
Of course, but we've had a lot of luck with Serbian coaches for the Black Stars. It's just that in recent times, after bringing the second coming of Milovan Rajvac, they didn't really work. But maybe let's hope for good things for the Black Queens, because we are about 6 months to play the Women's Africa Cup of Nations, and Nora Hopton leaving.
Well.
Yeah, we have to. We have to, because we've missed the last 2 editions of the tournament. So it is like a comeback for us, and we need to announce ourselves big on the African continent.
But finally, though, some injuries among Kotoko players?
Big miss and a big worry for Kumasi Asante Kotoko, because their leading top scorer, Albert Amoa, is currently injured, and we are hearing that it's a ligament injury and usually keeps players out for around 2 months, and that is what we are hearing. This afternoon, their head coach, Prosper Nati Ogum, in a presser, announced that this would be a big blow to them, considering the fact that they are challenging for the Ghana Premier League title. But Kotoko have also been able to bring in some players that will cover the absence of Amoa. I mean, Samson Eduko has come in. He scored 14 goals before leaving Ghana when he was with Tamale City. They've brought back Kwame Poku, who was a fan favorite, even though he played just 6 months for the Porcupines before he left for outside. And he started well since he came back. You know, second comings are sometimes difficult. But since he came back, 2 games, 2 goals for Kotoko. So let's see what happens with the Porcupines.
Okay, I know I said my last question, but really my last one.
No problem at all.
The injuries among the Kotoko players. I'm just wondering whether there's any upcoming game between them and Hearts of Oak. I mean, those games are usually very interesting.
Of course.
Just wanted to find out how that could impact their performance if indeed they have an upcoming game with Accra Hearts of Oak.
Unfortunately, Hearts of Oak do not have a game coming up against Kotoko anytime soon. They would have been licking their lips, hoping and waiting, or knowing that Albert Amoa wouldn't be in the fray. But unfortunately for the Phobians, they wouldn't have any game against Kotoko. But Kotoko have recruited well this winter, and these players are equally up to the task.
Winter in somewhere else, but Hamatan in Ghana.
Ghana winter. We call it the winter transfer window as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
And that was Mutala Yakubu bringing us the latest in sports. You're so here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. And you're still here on Hot Edition on Shri FM 92.7, some 20 minutes past the hour of 6 actually. And tonight, President John Mahama's request for Parliament to restart the legislation of the anti-LGBTQI bill has been met with resistance as the National Coalition for Proper Human Rights and Family Values bill has taken a stronger position to claims that the bill expired with the last Parliament. The president, in an interaction with Catholic Bishops' Conference, said that the document suffered setbacks because it was a private member's bill and must be reintroduced as a government-sponsored bill. But groups such as the National Coalition for Proper Human Sexual Rights and Family Values would not have that, as they are warning against attempts to frustrate the passage of the bill. Let's hear exactly what President John Mahama said earlier. Well, we'll be bringing you what the president said, but let's hear the reaction from Edem Senanu, a leading member of the National Coalition for Proper Human Rights and Family Values.
So there's a technical lacuna we need to address. And so when the president says that it died with the parliament, I don't think that's a very accurate description of what happened. And I think that that's an issue that needs to be taken up. What happens when future presidents attempt to do that? Because what they have done is to interfere with the constitutional processes as outlined. The president should not underestimate the resolve of the citizens of this country. Over 93% of whom have said they support this bill to make sure it's passed. I think the suggestion that it did not have exhaustive or enough support, or it must be a government pushed bill, is neither here nor there. There are at least 5 times I heard the president saying he will assent to this bill, which meant that in its current state, it was clear that what it constituted was sufficient for it to be passed. We should not begin to raise issues which seem to mean that not enough people were supporting it. I think that would be taking us down a trajectory which would seem to imply that he's shifting goalposts and doesn't want to pass the bill. Yes, and that's where I'm saying that we are disagreeing with that. We are saying there's a technical issue to be addressed, and we'll be highlighting it for the president's attention. As far as we are concerned, Parliament had actually finished its work. So that statement is not as accurate as it ought to be. So we need to make that decision, and we need to actually look at that scenario and address it for the future.
And you heard the Edem Senanu, he's co-chair of Advocates for Christ, a group that has been vocal in the LGBTQI debate. And before we go, the Office of the Special Prosecutor has commenced investigations into 16 entities of public interest, including the operations of the National Cathedral Secretariat, Bank of Ghana, and the National Sports Authority. Lord Edwasari has more.
Starting with observations during the 2024 general elections, the OSP indicated that the office had received numerous petitions of misdemeanors from both members of the public and candidates. It therefore noted that investigations will be launched into such matters. The anti-corruption body also outlined court cases which had been initiated against it, but one case in point being a challenge on its constitutionality of its mandate, which was dismissed by the Supreme Court. 3 high-profile criminal cases are being tried before the courts and will continue to be held this year. Investigations into 3 entities, the Ghana Police Service, Gaming Commission of Ghana, and former Secretary of the Inter-Ministerial Committee on illegal mining have been concluded and further directives will soon be issued. As far as pending investigations are concerned, the Office of the Special Prosecutor named 16 entities, including the National Cathedral, Galamsey, National Service Authority, National Sports Authority, Bank of Ghana, the Electricity Company of Ghana, the estates of the late Pedro Osu Efriye, also known as Sir John, and others which have peak public interest. The Office of the Special Prosecutor says it remains resolute in the fight against corruption and will collaborate with the appropriate bodies.
And Lord Eduasari found that report. We do apologize for the poor quality of that sound. And that's it for Hot Edition here on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you very much for joining us today. Log on to 3news.com for more news. Have a good evening and do enjoy the rest of our programs.